Eminentissimum Acreverentissimum Dominum Georgium Marium, Sancte Romani Ecclesiae Cardinalem Bergoglio, qui sibi nomen imposuit Franciscum.
All right, we've got Jorge Bergoglio is our new Holy Father. He's an Archbishop of Buenos Aires in Argentina, and he's a Jesuit, and he has taken the name Francis. He's 76 years old. This is a very exciting moment for the Universal Church, and now they're chanting his name, I assume. Reaction, Father Raymond?
Well,
were you expecting this? This is a surprise.
No, you heard me say what I thought earlier, and actually, to be honest, Cardinal Bergoglio, now Pope Francis, and I don't know if he'd be called Francis the First or just Francis, because we haven't had a Francis before. He's a Jesuit, which is very interesting. He didn't choose Ignatius; he chose Francis. I'm not sure he chose Francis of Assisi or Francis Xavier, who was the great Jesuit, but he's an Argentinian cardinal. He's the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, and in 2005, he was the candidate, as it were, who got the second most votes, and very well respected. But it was thought that 8 years later, at the age of 76, that his time had passed. But obviously, the cardinals who had been in his camp in 2005 were still there, and others as well. So the first pope, of course, from Latin America, which is an enormous joy for the church, which is mostly Latin American. I'm sure in Buenos Aires at the moment that the streets are filled with people, and all over Latin America for the first Latin American pope, Jorge Bergoglio, a Jesuit, which is not common.
First Jesuit
pope.
First Jesuit? Well, now we've got a first from Mark.
First Argentinian, first Latin American, first Jesuit, and the first Francis. So it is a surprise, and I am surprised, and I did not expect this. And I would say that no one really did, because he was not what we were told. So Michael said earlier, I think you asked Michael, was it possible for a total surprise? And he said, it's always possible, but we didn't think so. Well, we got one.
Exactly.
Michael, your reaction?
No, exactly. I think it certainly is a surprise. It's not one of the top candidates that anyone had talked about. Also older, an older man perhaps many talked about. There was, of course, a lot of buzz going in that the Cardinals would be looking to someone perhaps in their 60s. Obviously, the Cardinals older. I believe he's 76 years old. So again, an older man, but just a remarkable choice, a surprise, really.
Jim?
Yes, I agree. I know his name did appear on one list that I saw very recently of the 20 top contenders, but I thought at the age of 76 he was out of contention. He must be, I think, in very good health. He must have been judged by his fellow Cardinals to be up to the position. And really very significant that he did finish second the last time around, or at least that's what we're reliably told. He has a reputation of being quite orthodox, of being pretty, well, we wanted to use the word conservative, but of course every pope would be. But it's clearly not in any sense a radical departure from what we've seen up until now.
And
But
we, of course, just heard about our new Holy Father, Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio of Argentina. And just to give you a quick sense, he's a member of the Congregations for Divine Worship and Discipline of the Sacraments, for Clergy, Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life, Pontifical Council for the Family, and Pontifical Commission for Latin America. He's a first in many ways. First Jesuit, we have it on confirmation from our resident historian, first from South America. And a real surprise in many ways. He was a big contender in the last conclave and wasn't expected necessarily to be so this time. Father Raymond, what do you think the impact's going to be in Latin America to have the first Latin American
This was actually one of the great sotto voce frustrations was the Latin American Cardinals came here and felt somewhat neglected. There were 19 Latin American electors, and they're almost 50% of the entire church. And so they felt that the Latin America hadn't been given its proper place, given its prominence in the church today. But it wasn't expected that there'd be a Latin American candidate this round, and many people, including myself, wrote that what the Latin Americans would do vis-a-vis other candidates would be a very critical factor. Well, it turned out that what they did is very important because one of their own members was elected. The church is mostly Latin American, so I think it's close to 50%, if not 50%. So to have a pope from the part of the world where the church is vibrant and numerous is important. The fact that this is not a European pope, it's the first non-European pope. The fact that he's from the New World, from the Americas, is significant. The fact that the Pope at World Youth Day in Rio de Janeiro in a few months will be from the neighboring country, if I've got it correct, my geography of Latin America, will also be very significant. Maybe he'll stop in Argentina on his way there or on the way back. That he's a Jesuit is something that was always thought was a disqualifying factor, but obviously is not.
What is the historical background? Because I had sort of had that vague impression myself that there was some sort of reason we hadn't had
it wasn't very clear, but it was always thought that there was a prejudice against electing Jesuits. The general of the Jesuits himself was sometimes called the Black Pope, implying that he was pulling strings behind the scene. Jesuits had that image of being kind of politically involved. But I don't really know if there was any rational reason why no Jesuit was ever elected. Almost every other major religious order has had their popes, but the Jesuits did not. They were, of course, supposed to be very devoted to the Pope. They put a special vow of obedience to the Pope.
And Latin America, we know, has 42% of the world's Catholics. Michael, what do you think the impact will be, even just in the United States, for Catholics in the United States to see a Latin American pope?
It has to be huge. Obviously, the Latino community in the United States is already enormous and is growing. It's the largest and fastest growing segment of the church in the United States. And so this has to certainly be received, quite well in the Latino community and be a source of pride and perhaps inspiration.
We're hearing some cheering. We're trying to figure out.
No
one's out yet.
Would be remarkable. They'll close the curtains before the curtains are closed, and now that they're moving behind the curtains, perhaps he's coming.
See this.
Are we?
Coming up.
So we've got the curtains billowing there, but we're going to have a pope who's going to speak as his mother language.
Here he comes.
There he is.
Pope Francis. Here he comes.
Pope Francis.
What an awesome moment that must be.
The first non-European pope on the balcony.
That's Monsignor Guido Marini behind him, the papal master of ceremonies, and he is now looking at a Rome filled with pilgrims cheering for him and praying for him, as we are all around the world. You hear the band playing? Yes. That's our first Jesuit Pope. That's our first Latin American Pope.
There's
So
the Argentinian flags in the piazza, which there'll be many more in these days and months ahead.
And we have 76 years old. We're pretty sure that's his.
Yes.
So he looks like a healthy. Yes.
And there you see, if you look on the balconies on either side, there are the cardinals all lined up there, trying to see how the world greets their work.
Must be a moment of exhilaration and pride as well.
And you can see in Pope Francis there, he's standing, taking it in. I think you feel the weight of the moment on him.
Incredible surprise. The surprises began February 11th with the resignation of Pope Emeritus Benedict, and it's been...
Buonasera. Voi sapete che il dovere del conclave era di dare un vescovo a Roma. Sembra che i miei fratelli cardinali sono andati a prenderlo quasi alla fine del mondo, ma siamo qui. Vi ringrazio per l'accoglienza, la comunità diocesana di Roma, al suo vescovo, grazie. E prima di tutto vorrei fare una preghiera per il nostro vescovo emerito, Benedetto XVI. Preghiamo tutte insieme per lui, perché il Signore lo benedica e la Madonna lo custodisca. Padre nostro che sei nei cieli, sia santificato il tuo nome. Venga il tuo regno, sia fatta la tua volontà, come in cielo così in terra. Dacci oggi il nostro pane quotidiano, rimetti a noi i nostri debiti, e noi lo rimettiamo ai nostri debitori, e non ci indurre in tentazione, ma liberaci dal male. Ave Maria, piena di grazia, il Signore è con te, benedetta tra le donne, e benedetto il frutto del tuo seno, Gesù. Santa Maria, Madre di Dio, prega per noi peccatori, adesso è l'ora della nostra morte. Amen. Gloria al Padre, e al Figlio, e allo Spirito Santo, come era nel principio, e ora e sempre, nei secoli dei secoli. E adesso incominciamo questo cammino, vescovo e popolo, questo cammino della Chiesa di Roma, che è quella che presiede nella carità a tutte le chiese, un cammino di fratellanza, d'amore, nella carità a tutte le chiese, di fiducia fra noi, di fratellanza,
A way of fraternity, of love, of trust in
tutto il mondo, sempre per noi, l'uno per l'altro, ci sia una